Oh gosh. Oh gosh. People are gonna think that something's wrong with me. Well, something may be. So I've been on this blurry thumbnail kick lately, so that's why. And then I was like, oh, my head is far. So let me push my head forward and shake it around a little bit. And then the thumbnail came out, whoever came out. So anyway, I know it's a bit late tonight, but I am not going to be needing your therapeutic services. I don't know why I'm talking like that. Sometimes I do. I think it's all the Doctor Who that I've watched, and sometimes it just happens. So if it offends anyone, I apologize up front. So I saw the fourth episode of Ragnarok. I be stressed in this show sometimes because I'm just like, why are you putting yourself in these situations? Like, I feel like if I were the main character and if I were having some of the questions and concerns that I was having, then I would be navigating things a little differently. But also, I guess he's younger. But at the same time, I feel like I've always been, I don't want to say paranoid, but like if something is under investigation, then I'm not just gonna like show up. You know what I mean? Where somebody can make something look like an accident. Anyway, that's not what this is about. Um, so I don't know what this is about. I just finished watching Reem's tourist video, and it kind of reminded me of a spot that I was in a year ago, and even recently. I think lately I've been able to get a fairly good sense of what is being asked of me depending on what I'm experiencing. Now, even though I can get a fairly good sense of it, doesn't necessarily mean that I do it. And I think right now, for me, it's a time, and I've been knowing it for, I want to say at least a few months now, but it's a time to not be so bound and to be more open and to explore. And excuse me. Like, I can always find a reason to do anything. I wish I had some water. One second. In the spirit of Rob and Lauren, I'm going to be a real heathen and just drink this straight out of the bottle. I mean, I'm the only person that's going to drink this anyway. This undisclosed liquid. But I've been knowing that for a while now. Also, I didn't think about it until I sat down to watch episode 4 tonight. But yesterday, the Four of Wands came out, and I was like, "Is that a Gallarhorn?" And then I watched episode 3 last night, and they were drinking mead out of horns. I was like, "Oh, that's the Gallarhorn." So I guess in that, the mead was the conduit and the medium through which our character was able to form that pact, do that, get that Four of Wands moment with that piece of him that lied even deeper. You know what I mean? What was within him that he was not yet aware of. And then he approached a little lady and he was like, "What did you do to me?" Well, he didn't say it like that. And she was like, "I didn't do anything. That was already there. I just helped it come to the surface." Um, and I just thought it was interesting. I completely forgot about the horn because in the Four of Wands and the vice versa, on one side, the dude was like, he had a little horn. I was like, what? This is not alcoholic, but if it was, it's my business, right? You're just here with me in this public forum. Um, so I've been knowing that. And so because of pressure in life, also in Reem's reading, she was talking about a start, stop, start energy. And I've experienced different kinds of pressure throughout the last, and this is also related to something that I know, um, but that I don't really do anything with. And so maybe that's a little bit of circular stuff. It's like, okay, well, let's loop you back around to the thing that you already know you're supposed to be doing. But I've been feeling pressure in a lot of different areas throughout the past year and a half. Since pressure? Since like May of last year. So about a year now. In different areas and for different reasons. And like at first, I remembered so one of my dreams originally was to get my undergrad in engineering at Purdue and then go to medical school and then do what it is that I plan on doing in the pharmaceutical industry. And so last year, I was in the space of completing it. And then I got an email. I assumed that they were like fraudulent or whatever, or just like spammy. But one day in late May, I decided to open it up, and it was a thing. Apparently, there was like some international student program thing, and Khalifa University was taking people, and they have a medical school, and there was like the scholarship process. And when I found it, it was past the deadline, but because of COVID, the deadline was extended. And I was like, what? Because like medical school was on my um, plan of things to do that I thought of it as a non-reality, and now it's more of a reality than before. And I've kind of been toying with the idea of going back to school, but I kind of want to make money before I go back to school. Anyway, um, that it was almost a reminder to me in that moment. I was like, well, do I take it? Like it came back. That must mean something, right? Maybe this is the sign that I should do it. And this is also the point in time where choice started to be really prevalent for me, I guess. It's like just because something comes back around, or just because you get a sign that affirms something that you've once believed, or that you currently believe and currently want, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is for you to do. And by that, I mean, it's like, it's not that it's not something that you can do, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the thing that's destined for you to do. Because you have choice. You could do it or you could not. And sometimes it's like, hey, this is an option. This is a way to go about getting that one thing that you used to want. Do you still want it? And sometimes it's a question of, do you still want it, that can test the growth that you've sort of gone through on your journey or in your life as a person? Or it's just it's a like a question, like, do you still want it? It's here if you want it. If you don't want it, that's cool. Like, there are other things for you. Um, but when I first came across that, it was a really big like mind sort of whatever. And I was like, do I take it? Do I not take it? And I was like, oh well, maybe this is just the divine showing me that which I used to dream for is still a reality. Q2, so that was in May. Q2 December when I get freaking cataract surgery, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see now. There's a whole bunch of stuff I can do. And I'm glad I got it done, because then when I went on my trip, I was able to appreciate the views and the sights and stuff like that. Like being able to see out to the horizon when you're on the lake and there's nothing but lake and sky. Like Moana, right? Moana gets it. That line where they meet. Now, it wasn't calling me, but I appreciated it. I also, like on the ferries and on the boats that I was on, I was a lot more comfortable than I thought I would be. And that also reminds me of a dream that I had with my buddy Russ. He was in the dream. And he was like, we went on the ferry to go to an island. And then he was showing me some of the stuff that he was working on. And it was so interesting and almost disrespectful in the dream that, like, in the dream, I could not stay awake. I could not stay awake. I'm like falling asleep in the dream, trying to like read all of what he was doing. And then the teacher person was upset, like, wow, like you spent all the time with that and you were falling asleep. And I was like, I can't help that I'm like jet lagged and tired, but I was paying attention to what I did read. It's not like I was just whatever. Anyway, so there's that thing about when things kind of sort of resurface. There's also this other line. It's like whenever I'm put under pressure, I go into go mode. It's the procrastinator in me, maybe. That's when the eye of the bull goes, and then you charge up, and I was gonna make a bull noise, but I'm not gonna do it. Um, and when I was finishing my degree requirements in November, December, I was like, I work so well under pressure. I can accomplish so much at the last minute, but it's not for me to always be in that space to do something. And that's another thing that I consciously knew. I was like, okay, Patrick, we're gonna have to work through this because that's not the way to live life. Slacking off and then stressing out at the last minute is not how to do it. But I guess my eyes got fixed and video games and anime became a thing, and also energies are like wild sometimes, and I just be tired. And it's like when I'm under pressure, that I'm looking for stuff. I'm like looking at jobs, looking at work, things like that, like looking at sort of my life beyond these four walls. And I'm like, well, where do I want to go with that? How do I get there? Like, where do I need to start now to end up in the ballpark of where I'm going, even if that's not where I ultimately end up, right? And then the pressure relaxes, and then I'm back to video games and anime and not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, really, or finding excuses to not do it. But it's back on. And in that, I feel like I'm finding, like, so yesterday I think I was live and I got a LinkedIn notification for an event, and it talked about pharmacovigilance, right? And I'm looking at job. I still got them up here because for some reason I could save all the jobs, but once I like made an account, I can't access them. So I have the list up so I can find them and then apply. But pharmacovigilance was mentioned in one of them. I was like, oh, snap, I just saw that last night. And I'm attending an event on Saturday about pharmacovigilance. And I got another LinkedIn notification. And it's also it's a passion area of mine. It's in um, like rare and ultra rare diseases. And that one was more about, I mean, it was sort of coded to genetics, but it was more about, honestly, it was more about like the clinical trial phase and the interaction between the patients and the companies or the whoever that's conducting the clinical trials, and how sometimes, because especially in the space of rare and ultra rare diseases, there's not a lot of treatments or resources most of the time. And so when you go to someone and you are pitching a clinical trial for a new treatment option, it's like it sort of plays on their desperation a little bit. And it was talking about, like, are some of the things that came out, it's like how you can manage, I don't want to say manage, but it's like just being upfront and honest with those people rather than sort of leveraging that desperation to do whatever. And for me, that was an interest area because I got my own genetic stuff going on with my eyes. And then I found this company that has, like, they specialize in like two areas that I'm extremely interested in. One of them being like ophthalmics. And also, the program that I was looking at, the rotation was in the UK. So I'm like, if I can do that and be in the UK for a few years and then decide if I want to stay or come back, I could do that. My buddy is going to the UK. I got basically extended family there because, like, his familia asked me familia, right? Mi casa es tu casa. Yeah, his family is my family. So I know people over there. Um, and I was like, that'd be cool. I'm high key ready to take that. um, and I guess just talking about it, it's like, so another thing. which is what I was originally going to talk about, is like I got on here after Reem did her summer solstice all signs video, crying, wham wham boo hooing about how like the life that I want or the career that I want feels like it satisfies a desire for me to like heal people, but it does so in a way that is a lot more day to day. It's rooted in like, science and medicine rather than spirituality and energy and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't think that that's the reason why I want to do this. And then I was like, oh, snap. Well, maybe it is because there's a lot of resistance here. But I feel like I've also experienced this sometimes where it's like sometimes the path that I want to take or something that I want, like I'll be in a space to question it or it'll be challenged in some way. And it isn't challenged for me to necessarily go on a different path. Almost, it's like it's sometimes it's challenged for me almost to just like be aware, right? Like there were some little, we'll call them past life, maybe even genetic traumas associated with that, like medicine manny, shamanic sort of healer type thing. But and so like it was for me to be aware of that, but it wasn't necessarily for me to not take the path down the pharmaceutical industry that I want. Because it is something that, and I think for me personally, like life has been so like laid out from like kindergarten to college, right? You go to school and then you go to more school and more school and then even more school. And then if you want to do more school, you can do more school and then more school after that. And then go into the workforce, or you kind of sort of choose when you want to branch off of the educational path. But like it's always been easy for me to just do education. And when I was in like seventh or eighth grade, we had to do a report and on like a career or something, and I had to do a report on like a chemical engineer. And I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So when people started asking me what I wanted to do or what I wanted to major in, I was like, oh, chemical engineering. It was convenient, right? And so there have been things that I've done out of convenience. Also, when I was in high school, I was in an honors biology class, and my teacher, freshman year, she noticed how much of a nerd I was. I guess, yeah, she noticed how much of a nerd I was, and she was like, "So, like, the seniors usually go to these genetic updates conferences, but you look a little nerdy, and I think you would like it. So if you want to go, you can." And I went to one of those, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So it's like there are so many different like threads that all sort of come and weave together to form the man that you see before you on your screens. Because it's like I had an interest in that, which is what led me to want to pursue more of the pharmaceutical route or the like medicine or healthcare or whatever, rather than like petroleum or like plastics or materials or anything like that when it comes to chemical engineering. And then also there's this part of me that like understands things and is capable of learning. And it's been my experience a lot in life that like not only can I grasp things fairly quickly sometimes, I'm also able to teach it. Question mark. You know what? I'm gonna go full ego on this one. I'm not gonna sell myself short. So not only can I grasp things quickly, I can also teach it, especially if I know the person I'm talking to, because I can kind of sort of tap into how people learn sometimes. And my brain is like just like out there enough that I can find like so many different ways. Like my brain operates in metaphor. So Like it's not that hard for me most of the time to come up with something that would work to get somebody to remember something, right? And so in that, I feel like there was another part of me that was like, oh, well, this is something that I understand and comprehend, and there's a need here. So I could also do it for that, right? I feel like my knowledge throughout pretty much my whole life has served other people more than it served me. And so that was also just the thing that I kind of sort of accepted, question mark, or that I didn't mind, right? So those are some of the things that landed me on chemical engineering. And then I didn't even hear about Purdue. I hadn't even heard about Purdue until what, my sophomore year in high school. I did Project Lead the Way, which was like you take some pre-engineering classes in high school so that you're more ready for engineering if that's the path that you choose in college or university. And so, sophomore year of high school, in my intro to engineering design class, at the end of the school year or whatever, um, I was like, there are some moments I don't even know how I got into them. But I guess it was like after school hour, I was after class talking to the professor. And he was like, oh, so like, when you go to like, what colleges are you looking at? Like, what are you going to do? And I'm a sophomore. So I'm like, I have this answer. I always have these convenient answers that I just tell people when I don't want to like have to think too much about my life or my future. And I lived that for a long time. So that's another reason why this space of choice is kind of particularly challenging for me because I've always had convenient answers. Um, but I was like, oh, I'm thinking like chemical engineering, and I'm going to go to the UIUC because it's like really close to where I live. And I toured, or when I was a younger, maybe middle school, maybe like seventh grade, eighth grade, maybe even sixth. We went to UIUC because there were some people at my church who went there and they like showed us campus and I fell in love. I was like, this is where I'm going to go. But then he was like, oh, well, Purdue's a really good engineering school. You should look at Purdue. And I was like, okay. In one ear, out the other. It went in my ear. I filed it in the back of my brain. And then I was just like, okay, I'm pretty much already set on where I'm going to go, but I'll hang on to this information just in case, I guess. I'm really going all the way into this. This whole video is going to be stuff like this. So if you're looking for anything like spiritual or cards or whatever, this probably isn't the one for you. I'm already like 23 minutes into it. Pretty late disclaimer, but it may be like 2 hours long. So, it could be early. Who knows? The video isn't done yet. But anyway, so I put it in the back of my brain. And then when I went to take the ACT junior year of high school, we got to send our scores to 3 schools for free. So the school that I knew I was going to go to, of course, was number one. Number two, I'm like, University of Chicago, because why not? Didn't even think of the University of Chicago. Maybe there was like a list or something and I put it on there. And then I saw Purdue, and I remembered the conversation I had a year prior with that professor. I was like, oh, I'll send them to Purdue because I only got one school that I know, and I get to put 3 for free, and I'm not going to waste them. So Purdue was convenient, right? And then senior year rolled around, and when I was a senior in high school, you got excused absences to go and tour colleges. So we toured UIUC. We drove up and toured the University of Chicago. I love the University of Chicago. It felt very Hogwartsian. Like there was ivy growing on the buildings, and it was like it was older. It had an older feel, and I was like, I dig this. My mom did not like it at all. Um, and then I went to Purdue because I was like, well, it's not that far from where I live, and I get an excused absence, so I'm gonna go there. And I loved it immediately. I loved Purdue so much I toured it 3 times. I toured it 3 times, and it was an excused absence. And it's like the first time we were there, I was like, this is it. And so what was convenient ended up feeling like it. And then I got there. And I hated it for the first year. I was miserable. I was like, all of my friends went to UIUC. I don't go anywhere. I don't talk to anybody. I'm miserable. I'm depressed. I'm in my room all by myself. I didn't have a roommate, which was cool. But, so I was all alone. And then there were a few dudes on my floor. I lived in the dorms who were pretty nice. There was this one dude who was really cute. He's a Gemini. So, like I said, and because LB Untitled Tarot in the live stream with Rob's Tarot, she said that like she ended up dating a lot of people who were like held her South Node sign, and my South Node is in Gemini, and I go like the first dude. It was like the first dude I locked eyes with on campus. He just so happened to live on my floor. The most gorgeous, like bluest eyes I've ever seen. Turns out, I think I don't really have a type, but brunette dudes with blue eyes, they just kind of stack up there. They're like, I've noticed that pattern, and they also happen to be Geminis. So, but there is a Gemini dude who is I don't think he's Irani. He's from somewhere around there. He's also a Gemini though. He's really cute. I was attracted to him. He had a pretty nice sense of humor. He was very funny, but very tortured at the same time. And that's the part that was like, oh. But he's working on that. Anyway, so I was like, I feel like Purdue is where I'm supposed to be, but I absolutely hate it here. I don't know anyone. I don't do anything. But this dude, he would always make a point to like come by my room or to speak to me when he saw me. And he was really cute. And I was like, I know this is dumb, but he's going to be my reason to stay here until I find out like why I'm supposed to be here. I'm fine with him being the reason that I stay here. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was my desperation or if it was because I had latched onto him. I wasn't like desperate, but like he was the only thing that I really enjoyed about Purdue in that time. Also, that was like one of the only times in my life that I haven't been able to like form coherent sentences when I'm talking to somebody. Like he would talk to me, he'd be like, "Hey Patrick, how are you doing?" I'll just be like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "This is so dumb." I don't know why I can't form a coherent sentence. It took me a good like few months before I could actually have a conversation with him. And that's only happened to me in like a one-off encounter after that. In that same year, though. Um, anyway, I was like, he's going to be my reason. And it was so strange because there was something within me that could just feel when he was nearby. And I remember one day, it was pretty late, and I heard somebody like outside my room. And I got that feeling. I was like, it's him. I know it. And it was him. And even when like he moved out of the dorm, it was like there would be some days I would like wake up in the morning and I would just know that I would see him that day. And I would just randomly run into him on campus somewhere. I was like, oh, I had a feeling I would see you today. Um, I don't know what that's about. He's married now to a woman and they have a kid. So, there's nothing there. Also, so he ended up working at the university. And so I pretty much saw him for the entirety of like every now and then I would just see him. One day I even met up with him. Um, I was supposed to do that again, but it never happened. I was a sad mess. It's fine. I was a depressed, sad mess for a lot of my stay there. Even when I started talking to people and making friends. Um, but so it's because of him that I went to the hall club because every residence hall at Purdue has a club. And I started going there. And then he was in the Christmas show. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go. I texted my mom. I was like, we should go to the Christmas show. They had the golden ticket deal. Tickets are $5. And he was like a guy who was in a not great situation. And he was gonna buy it. This is the part that didn't make sense to me. Like he was gonna buy a toy, but then he didn't even have the money to buy the toy. So I guess he was gonna ask for the toy. And someone had bought the last toy and they gave it to him. So he was able to get his kid something for Christmas. So my mom didn't know that I had a crush on this dude. My mom had just found out like a year and some change prior to this that, I'm gay or that I identify as such. And she wasn't the most readily accepting of it. And then I'm in college, come to find out she's watching Glee and stuff. And whenever, like, because she would watch a lot of soap operas, and whenever someone in the community, LGBTQ plus, more like L or G, or B, LG or B, because in soap operas I don't know how much like TQ plus there was, but anyway, anytime someone would like get screen time, she would like make a whole thing about it. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna come out to you. I didn't come out to her. She ended up finding out through a whole situation that is a mess in itself. That whole thing is a mess. It's so messy. It's so messy. But I would have never come out to her. So I'm fine with it working out that way. I was too scared. Every time I thought about it, I would have nightmares where she'd disown me and she'd be like, I would basically be walking down the street with tears streaming down my face because I wasn't welcome in this house anymore. I chickened out every time because of those nightmares. Um, but then come to find out, she's like watching Glee and she's up and, hey Zelda, how you doing tonight? Oh snap! Is it 11:11? Is it? It is. Boom! Look at that. Thank you for coming in at 11:11, Zelda. Uh, and so when we got back from the Christmas show, it was the last show that night. So he came in and he was like, "Oh, hey, Patrick." I was like, "Hey." I was like, "Hi," and then he was like, "Hey, ma'am." He said hi to my mom, and she was like, "Oh, like you were in the Christmas show." He was like, "Yeah." And then we go back to my room, and she's like, "He's the reason why we went to the show, isn't it?" And I was like, "No, what are you talking about? What do you mean?" Like literally in that brief interaction, she could tell that I was like crushing on dude. But so that's how I got into the Christmas show. And I don't think they had it last year, but I've been every year since. I love the Christmas show, even though the quality low key kind of sort of it's dipped a little bit. They used to do like skits and stuff and like used to have a whole sort of setup and a story, but lately it's just singing Christmas songs, which is still amazing. So. So that happened. And then one day, because I was in the meeting because a cute dude, they were talking about positions that were opening at the front desk. And I was going to be living in the same dorm the next year. So I was like, oh, like I could work, get paid, and I could like meet people in the building. I could start making friends. And so I applied for that and I was there for a while. I met so many people, had so many opportunities. I networked a lot at Purdue in ways that, like being a student front desk worker, I wouldn't have necessarily thought I would have been able to network. It turns out that's like a strength of mine. Surprisingly, I guess. That's when I found out what a Capricorn midheaven means for me. Um, and then that just like it led to so many other opportunities. So again, it's like while a lot of what I did choose was out of like convenience and was because of like circumstance, um, it was all my path, right? Just like that's sometimes if you're like me and you don't know how to make choices or decisions, then that's how paths work. You just kind of naturally find yourself on them. Um, don't remember why I was talking about all that. I think it was just to talk about sort of like convenience, right? And so now that I'm out of school, that convenience of like what happens next is gone. I get to choose what I want to do in life. And I'm in a space now to choose more than ever, less restricted, less bogged down by fear and depression and anxiety, less feeling incapable that because of my eyes I won't be able to be sort of like self sufficient. Excuse me. And there are plenty of like blind people who like, are and do. Hey Sheila, how you doing? I'm just like rambling tonight. Um but for me it was always like the future was always something that I didn't want. I didn't think I really had one. And from what I could see of the future, I didn't like it. Uh, so between a fear of the future and convenience, I didn't make a lot of choices in life. Um, and so also you like I was talking about with the whole like medical school thing, because of my eyes, there were things that I thought like the ship had sailed on. Um, and it is, I guess, it's interesting in a way. And this is where we talk. It's like life being life, right? We write it to the game, and we we send it on like bye bye. That's where I was in life at that moment, at that time and place. There's no use in getting depressed about it now. But I was so fearful and afraid of so much that I delayed my own process because I didn't want to be out in the real world where I had to make choices where it was less convenient, it was safer on campus. And so your boy would sabotage some stuff sometimes, often, or get depressed. Um, and and depression is like valid. So if there were choices and decisions that I made because of the mental state that I was in at that time, then like that's what it was. Um, but it's just interesting now that, especially, I have my eyesight is restored significantly. It's like there is so many things that it's like I didn't even necessarily have to like freak out about. But again, it was all part of the journey because I wouldn't have reached the space that I'm in right now if it wasn't as sort of terrifying and overbearing, right? This was responsible in large part for my darkest night when I was finally like, I got to get it together. And if this is something that I'm just going to have to accept about my life and my experience in this lifetime, then it's just something that I'm going to have to do. Um, and then, so that was January 2019. I got really intentional about that because October 2018 into the top of November 2018, like late October into the top of November, was one of the darkest periods of my life. I was like literally months away from graduation and just like threw it all away because of everything that was unresolved in me. And I remember talking to my professor, and I was like, during the school year, I'm too busy focused on school, and over the summers, I'm working, and I'm too busy focusing on work to do all of the things within me that I need to do for my mental health and sanity. Um, so I never have the time, right? And then because I dropped the ball in 2018, I got dropped academically. And so I had a semester. Uh, no. Yes. No. No. Yes. Yes. No. Yeah. I don't know why I'm getting confused. No. No. I didn't get dropped that semester, but none of the like all of the classes that I needed were only offered in the fall. So it didn't make sense for me to really do anything in the spring. It's like there were two classes I could have taken in the spring and then two I would have needed in the fall, or I could have just done them all in the fall. And so I decided to take a semester off, and I wasn't working, I wasn't in school. Again, at the top of 2019, I had decided it's like, if I continue about the way I'm going, this is never going to be resolved. And I'm going to be a semester, like, I'm going to be a few months from graduation again. And I'm just going to do the same thing. Now, I had already known because of everything that was. Yeah, I can see you, Zelda. Yeah, it is. It's extremely easy to sweep little things under the rug. Um, like even huge things. It's easy to sweep them under the rug too. It's easy to sweep everything under the rug when you're busy. And I think for a lot of people, that's another thing that like 2020 kind of sort of put us in the space of doing. For those who like, you know, work isn't necessarily happening, kids aren't necessarily going to school, and now you gotta stop and sit amidst everything that you sort of like built and created for yourself. And yeah, it's for some people though, it was very, it was like what they needed to really start their journeys. Um, or to get clear on the things that they needed to get clear on, to work through, to see, to face. And for a lot of people, I think they had that opportunity. And it was varying degrees of being able to sort of work through that while at the same time dealing with a world that was experiencing everything that the world was experiencing. Plus, depending on your situation, if there were other sort of stressors, then you had those to deal with too. So it was a lot. It was a lot all at once. But like, so I decided to take that semester off. And then like February rolled around. I'm like, I'm hungry. I'm not working. I don't know how my rent is going to be paid. But ever since like I started my I started my journey like mid November 2018. And it's funny, I started it like what, a week or like 10 days, a week to 10 days before I went to London. Um, and London was amazing. I wish I could go back with these eyes now that I can actually see. That's going to happen at some point. Um, like I got family over there, so I got a place to stay, and it's my friend's family. And when I was at his place last time, his brother was on the phone and his mom was on the phone, and they're like, "When are you coming back to London? When are you coming back to the UK?" And I'm like, "I don't know. When can I come back?" And his brother was like, "You can come back anytime." I was like, "Oh snap! Well, shoot. Let me give me a ticket then. Let me get a ticket." And it was like it wasn't that expensive. It was $500 round trip to fly. It was like 150 there and 350 on the way back. I was surprised. It was relatively inexpensive. I would have thought it was more. Um, you went in the 80s. Yeah, it was like it's a really big city, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels very like it felt very almost like homey and like nice. Um, that was the first time I had ever been in a major city. Now, when I first got off the plane, I was stressed AF because we landed at like seven something in the morning. So in the middle of like the morning rush, and I'm trying to like keep up with my friend, and I'm like, so I was trying to like stay by him so I wouldn't get lost in the crowd. Um, and so I was on the left, and then I noticed that everyone else was standing on the right. And these people were like coming down and they were like, keep right, get to the right. And I could already notice, like, okay, I need to get to the right. But since they were coming down, I couldn't move over. But, they saw me with my book bag on. Maybe they thought, oh, here's another person that isn't here. So I'll kindly tell them, keep right so that, the folks who are moving can pass on the left. Um, and like another thing is the curbs are so much lower. I feel like the curbs are so much lower than they are here. So every time I stepped down or stepped up, it was a lot more like shallow than I was used to. Um, but, after that, I woke up and I loved it so much. Um, and I'm glad that I started my journey like before then because I feel like it's weird. It isn't weird because that's who I was at that point in time. I think I would have been like a depressed mess and I would have been so like just like snippy and nasty that I wouldn't have enjoyed my time there. So I'm glad I did. But like since I started in mid-November, like I haven't been depressed. Not really, especially not like I used to be. It's never lasted more than like a day. I've never been in a weird energy for longer than like 2 to 3 days. And so like January rolls around, February rolls around. I'm like, I failed. Like I didn't graduate within the last few months. I'm not working. I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent. I'm kind of hungry because again, I don't have a lot of food. I had a little bit of money saved up from like work and stuff. Um, but I was like, I'm good. Like I'm not depressed. Like people will be like, "Hey Patrick, how you doing?" I'm like strangely not depressed right now. I was like, I'm not jinxing it. I'm not mad at it. It's just it's interesting. But I remember when mid February rolled around, and I was like, I need to work. I need to do something that you knew you needed to do for yourself. So now you don't have work. My connection is unstable. I think we're back. It was like, so now you don't work. Now you don't have school. Now you're in a space where you're willing and able to work through these things. Your space where you're able to receive. So do that. And by the grace of God, the Lord's, and good friends and family, I was able to make it through that time. And I talked about it before. I've talked about a lot of this before. Um, but I got some new subbies thanks to Rob and Lauren. So thank you. And if you've seen me in like Reams and you followed me over, welcome, I guess. It was so interesting because I uploaded one video a few days ago, maybe a week ago, and I got a little snippy. I was a little hot in that video. And then I come back and I notice more subscribers. And I'm like, why didn't they leave? It's fine. It's fine. It's nice to be appreciated and seen, right? Because I'm not like mean and snippy and hot for the sake of whatever. I do actually care about people, even though it may be hard to see sometimes. Yeah, it is, Sheila. Um, but yeah, since then, like I haven't been that depressed. And in that moment, I knew, like, well, this is the time that you need. So don't worry about work. Don't worry about that. And my faith in the divine was tested because my rent was several days late, a few times. But another thing that I needed to work through was I needed to not be an island, and I needed to open up to friends and family, and I needed to learn to lean on people for support when I need it. Um, because there was an old me that was like, no matter how difficult the experience I'm going through, I'm never going to rely on anybody. I don't care if I'm homeless on the street and I'm starving. Like, I'm not going to do it. But because I was already in a space of healing a lot of stuff, I was able to sort of mend that. And I got closer to my family and like to certain friends. And it's put me in a position where I guess I can, in a way, be a lot more vulnerable with people, and where I can like admit that I need help when I need help, utilize certain resources. So that for me was something that actually started a few years prior, utilizing resources when I need it. Like my eyes were going bad, and I was like, well, if I use the accessibility features, then I'm giving into it. If I use the accessibility features, then it becomes more of my reality, even though my reality is already impacted enough that I need the features. So it's like, so I can be impacted and reduce that impact by using these things that are available to me, or I can be impacted and depressed and miserable because I can't see anything. It's like, okay, that's old. Like that, the mind is just so intricately nasty sometimes. Can be. Thank you, Sheila. Um, but in that moment, I was like, this is what this time is for. This is what I kept saying I need this time for, so I'm gonna take it. Um, I feel like I'm all over the place with this video. I don't even remember why I came back there. But yeah, back to my original point, I guess. I'm in the position now where the pressure is back on and I'm forced to move. And the things that I want, oh, that's why I started talking about all of this. That's why I started talking about this. Exactly. And somebody was like, "Well, have you like thought about using like technology?" And I was like, no, because then I have to accept the reality, even though it's already my reality. So the reason why I started talking about all of that is because of convenience and the choices that I've made because of convenience, and how convenience and coincidence have sort of guided my path fairly uh, well, I guess. But now I'm coming into the space of choice. And I think sometimes because I did choose so much convenience, or because convenience was a large motivator, it's like it wasn't. Because I did find things that I was actually like, that I actually cared about, that I was actually passionate about. And I think that's another thing that I'm being reminded of right now. It's like, although a lot of my choices were based on what was easy, I did find myself in a place of wanting something that actually does resonate with me. And so if I find that challenged or questioned, maybe it is for me to pivot or go on a different path. But maybe it's also an opportunity for me to realize how much I actually do want to do the things that I want to do. How maybe it is safer for me. Maybe it does feel a lot more comfortable than other paths. But even in that, there is still something in this that could be for me. And I think because my journey, or because my life has been what my life is, I can view myself as not really great with like making choices or decisions, because a lot of times I've only done it when I was sort of put under pressure or when I was forced to. Um, but it's like it's not necessarily the case. So it's this very almost dual natured, dual aspected thing. And I think that's something else that the questioning that I'm in, it's leading me to. It's not that I'm not going to do the things that I originally wanted to do, but it's also not that I'm going to do the things that I originally wanted to do because it was convenient. And that for me, I've experienced this a few times within the past like year or so of my journey. And I think for me, it can be a little mind melty, that I would be on a certain path and then it would be questioned. I would be challenged on that path, but then I would choose to stay on it, or I would choose to go further. Because I think a lot of times, at least for me, it's like, well, if something is challenged, like if there's a tower moment, then it's for me to go somewhere else. It's not for me to keep going in the same direction, but sometimes it's not where we're going, but it's why. It's what motivates us, or it's about being clear on what motivates us. And I remember like maybe June, July in this space a year ago, I was like, it's so confusing. It's like, I was like, I feel like I've made progress and I feel like I've healed, but I'm making the same choices and decisions. And so one of the things for me was like healthy boundaries, because self love is something that I had to learn last year and it was difficult. I think like self love, like in word, it was easy, but actually putting it into practice and managing self love against love for others was very challenging for me. And before, it's like I would be cold with people to create emotional distance because I didn't want to be vulnerable with people. And I felt like in the space of creating healthy boundaries, sometimes I also put in more distance. And I was like, but like I used distance as a means to not be vulnerable before. And so like it looks like I'm doing the same thing on the outside, but on the inside it's like I know that I'm changed and I know that I'm different. Um and so I guess that's the part that I just wanted to share in this like 55-minute video. It's just that I found in my own journey that sometimes just because I come across a question or a challenge, it isn't necessarily for me to do something else or to go somewhere else. It's there's something in there for me to realize, or on a foundational level, there's something that needs to be switched out. It's like playing Jenga almost, where you can take the blocks out from the bottom and then you can insert, like reinsert them later, like a different block, without it crumbling, like or toppling the whole tower. It's just like sometimes these little things that didn't really serve or that doesn't really work, or there's these parts of our narrative, there are these healings that have taken place, but our direction may be the same. But I think sometimes, especially if we use our external environment or our external reality to evaluate how much internal progress we make, it can be a space of challenge. Because it may be like, well, I'm not doing anything different. So maybe I haven't changed. Maybe I haven't grown. Maybe I haven't healed. And I just don't think that that's always the case. That's literally all I wanted to say. Maybe it'll be helpful to somebody who'll come across this. Maybe it won't be. Who knows? Got to make decisions to get good at decision making. I've lost touch with the internet. It gets hard to follow it, but making a decision. Yeah, and I think like because I've always been in touch with my inner knowing, and like even when it was convenient, there was something within me that was like, oh yeah. Also, I sat on these earlier, so they're a little bent, which is why I try not to just leave them on my bed. But it happens. Yeah, like I've always been in touch with my inner knowing, and so there were times when it's like it feels right, but the way I got the answer, it felt convenient to me. But at the same time, like life can be like that, right? You get a sign or a synchronicity, and then all of a sudden you're on a different path. And I think another thing within me is that like my internal narrative is being questioned a lot, almost constant. Well, not necessarily constantly, but my inner narrative is being questioned a lot. And so for me, I'll have experiences like this where it'll be like maybe that did motivate this, but like there was more to it. Right? Everything that I did, it felt like what was for me to do. It's not like I made easier, convenient choices that went against what I wanted or that didn't feel right in the moment. And it's so interesting because it's like I feel like I can look at sign and synchronicity outside of those spaces and I can see it as me being guided. But then because I hold this narrative of like being bad at making choices or being indecisive, then it's like I look on the past and I look at those same like guideposts and how I followed them, and I look at that as like, well, I did what was convenient, I did what was easy. When it's literally the same thing. Like I was guided on my path and I followed the signs. And it always resonated within me. Like I went to Purdue and I loved it. It's not like I went there and I hated it, but I was like, well, I'm gonna go here anyway. Right? I like chose chemical engineering, but within the field of chemical engineering, I wanted to focus on pharmaceuticals. I knew that petroleum and like materials and plastics and stuff, like I wasn't as interested in that. And I guess for me, especially as someone who likes to think that I've had so much self awareness, and I do, when I notice certain things, it almost makes me question that. And it's very much so like, I didn't know what I didn't know at the time that I didn't know it. But just because I didn't know that then doesn't mean that I didn't know anything, right? Just like when we go through school, as we grow as like people, do we know absolute truth ever? Maybe not. But there are certain things that we know when we know them. And it is for us to know those things and we act on that knowing. And then if later, if we go back and we expound upon that, or we expand that, or if we sort of like make little minor changes and adjustments to that, then that means that we're good at being like alive, organic. We're good at change and evolution. It doesn't necessarily mean that like we're dumb, right? That's like calling a caterpillar dumb because it doesn't know how to fly. When it's like, well, it's just not in that phase of its lifetime yet. The caterpillar isn't stupid because it can't do what the butterfly does. We do what we do in the time that we do it, and that's what is for us to do. But when we come to these moments of transformation and evolution and change, and then we go about that, then we do that. And it's not to, it's like at the same time that we're recognizing things about ourselves in the past and about our environment, it's also not for us to sort of like beat up ourselves or beat ourselves up or talk down on ourselves about all of that. So there we go. I finally got there, Sheila. It finally came around. Which is why I just love getting on here and rambling sometimes. I said we weren't doing therapy, but it kind of sort of ended up being therapy by the end of it. And I think that's something that I've been in the space of acknowledging within myself at different points within the past year. But it's also something that I guess I have to remind myself of. And it's just because I guess I'm in a space of so significant a change right now. It's all therapy, right? It's because I find myself in so much change and I find myself so much more liberated and free to choose than I've ever been that sometimes it makes it a little difficult question mark, but also being in a space of choice makes it even more just like, okay, well, what do I do? Right? Like I'm the type of like I'm pretty good at managing myself, but I also get stressed out like very easily. I get overwhelmed very easily, but by like specific things. Like I don't get overwhelmed necessarily because like a lot of things pile up, but if it's like if I have to do a lot of things in a day, then I think I'll be fine. But if I have one task that takes up like the whole day, like if my room is an absolute disaster and I can't move in here at all, then it's like there's so much stuff like I don't know where to start. But I'm very good at like managing like stress in other situations. It's weird. I'm weird. I just accept that about myself. Yeah. And I think even with that, it's like, well, what company do I want to work for? What city do I want to move to? Right now, I know that I would love to end up some with something that has remote capabilities. I want to work for like a multinational company, just because if I ever decide to like go somewhere else, excuse me, for a few years, I can transfer within the company and do that. Um, and I do really want like a career. Like I want something that I can grow and develop into. Um, and if I end up, doing something like this, then that's also fine, right? You just got out of school too, and you're heading out into the real world. Yeah, I was so afraid of the real world for so long. I was like, I'll just be in school for like 10 years. I'll just do my undergrad in a decade instead of 4 years. It's fine. um, and that's one of the things that I guess I really liked about Ring's Taurus reading because it does validate that space of choice. And it's like, well, whatever I choose in this moment, whatever we choose in this moment, we're going to be supported by spirit. And I think we were so heavily guided for so long that we almost maybe got used to it. You've been out in it, not sure if you want to go back to VH. Yeah. I know some people in my personal life, or a person in my personal life, who does not want to go back to like corporate America and things like that because of what they found. Um, and I don't know why. I'm looking at this letter from the Secretary of State's office, and it says, Postmaster, please forward. That please forward energy, I don't know what please forward means, but it's like sticking out to me for some reason. Oh, so that's like if something gets delivered to an address that is not your current address or something, right? Then it's like, please forward it to the correct place to make sure they get it. I mean, so I'm an organ donor. I was kind of sort of put on the spot a few years ago. It was like, you want to be an organ donor? I was like, yeah, sure. And now I'm like, I was like, sure. I got this thing that was like, thank you for participating in the organ/tissue donor registry. Please encourage your friends and family to become part of the donor registry. I'm like, okay, well, you know, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to do that because I think that's a choice that people make for themselves. And that's another thing that I've really been getting comfortable in this space of lately. Um, is that, we all make our own choices and decisions. So, yeah, because I've worked in a mailroom before, and it's like anything first class or something like that would get forwarded. But if it was like junk mail, then we just threw it away. Pharmaceuticals are a bit different than corporate. Yeah, they are different. I know. So maybe a month ago, a few weeks ago, I saw a certain politician. I don't know her name, but she was breaking down a pharmaceutical company. She was like, you tell us that the reason why drugs are so expensive, pharmaceuticals are so expensive, especially in America, it's because you're recouping losses from research and development. But if we look at the cost breakdown, like research and development is such a small fraction of your costs. It's like this is not valid. And it's like you're charging us more for a medication, for a medicine that isn't any more effective than it used to be, just to make yourselves richer. And it's stuff like that. Like, I don't like the idea of like profiting off of pain. And when certain like pharmaceutical companies are so like blatantly and obviously about the money, like even when it comes to insulin, something that we've known how to make for like a while now, something that is so expensive here, but like you can go to Canada and get it like a lot cheaper. It's like I don't like I want to be a part of like the scientific, more like science side of like treatment and healing and stuff like that, but I don't want to be a part of an industry that profits off of pain. And when I saw that, I was like, ooh, like I don't know if I want this. Cuz my whole thing is like the path that I'm taking, I want to take so that hopefully like it'll be a lot more effective research and development. It can cut down costs in some ways. But then to hear her be like, the reason why it's so expensive isn't even because of research and development. Now, in the moment, I was like, I don't know if I want to do what I said I've been doing. Like, I still want to do it, but I don't want to be a part of this. This is nasty. But then also, I guess, in hindsight and in this space. So, thank you again, Sheila, for being here. This, like, if you see me come on at like 10 or 11 at night, it's this is probably what it's going to be. Um, but maybe it was just for me to know that, like, what the costs and the expenses are really about. It's not really about research and development. So if I want to have the same impact that I want to have moving forward, then maybe I take a different route. Maybe I take a different approach or I focus on different things. Wow. Seriously, it seemed like such a racket. But then there's a scientist that spent 15 years working on what became the way the vaccine is being made, not making money while people mocked her. Yeah. And I think that's another thing that I can kind of sort of forget too. is that like the people who are there like working and developing, like it's not that there isn't anyone in the company who cares at all. Like there are people in there who do that and who like do it for the right reasons. But at the end of the day, it's like it is a company. And as a company, it has certain expenses that it needs to take care of. Now, to the level that it's been doing it, maybe not. But there is a certain amount of accepting that it's a company and that, you can't necessarily just give away medicine for free that I would have to work through anyway. Um, so no problem, Zelda. Have a good night. Hopefully, choose a job. Yeah. Yeah, we are. Uh, we are. And I'm like, oh, capitalism. I'm glad to hear that, Zelda. Every little bit helps sometimes. Um, Enjoy the rest of your evening. But yeah, I know that I'm gonna get there, and I know that the world is changing, and I'm just, I guess, trying to find out where I want to be. But I was really excited looking at some jobs today, like pharmacovigilance, yes, or being like on that, and like I got my degree in engineering to be more on the manufacturing side, and then eventually in research and development. But like the people aspect of it also really draws me. And I don't like whatever. I think another thing that I consciously try to remind myself often is that like just because I start in a certain area doesn't mean I'm going to be there forever. I think it's raining. Yeah, it's raining outside. Um, just because I start here doesn't mean I'm going to end up here. And I think a lot of times, I don't know if it's the Taurus in me that's like, if I do something, I want it to like stand. Like if I'm putting time and energy and effort into something, I want it to be here for a while because I'm not about just wasting my energy and effort. Like I'd rather be asleep. Um, I guess it's to allow myself that transience. And I think Eve in her Pisces reading Everlong Mystic earlier, it was like give chance a chance. And I think it's the Taurus in me. A lot of times that's like no, I'm not giving, like, if it's a chance, I'm not going to do it. If I'm not going to get like a guaranteed payout on this energy that I'm about to exert to do this, I was like, I don't know. Because I feel like my tank run a little low sometimes, and I'd rather be in the bed chilling, watching Netflix, playing video games, watching anime. But I also know that life just, it's like it has this ability to redirect us, I guess. Um, Yeah, yeah, me too. um, it has this ability to redirect us, even if we're going like off path, and that's that like divine detour energy. How it's like it changes. We're constantly exposed to things that we have the ability to sort of check in with ourselves and go like, is this for me? Is this not for me? Like, is my time here finished? Should I go somewhere else, or do I go even more here? And again, it's going to be interesting operating this space of choice because I feel like we're in so much like choice. Choice is so heavy right now. And it's also to put us in a position where we can make self honoring choices at the same time. So, yeah, that's like, I guess, everything. I'm excited. Um, I'm just like, yeah, it's so fluid. I need to tap more into like the Pisces in me, more of that mutable, just like go with the flow type of energy. Um, we can't, and I just like there's a part of me that's like, oh, like what if I make the wrong choice? And like I've been hearing this for a minute now. Like when I say that, like I'm really fluid and flowy in a lot of areas, but like spirit has to break me down to like get me to finally like drop enough resistance to flow. Like I got what? Two Taurus placements. My Chiron is in Leo. I got Pluto and Scorpio, and then I also have Saturn and Aquarius. I have 5 fixed placements in my chart. So it's like I can be real fixed. But I also have like what, a Grand Cardinal square, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. I got 2 placements in Capricorn. So that's more Earth. And it's like I can be cardinal and I can be fixed. I'm really good at like starting things, and I'm really good at like not moving. But that flow in between, that's where my nodes are. And my sun is there too. So, I do know how to flow sometimes. I just need to be more expansive in that. And that's something else that it's been coming to me like more and more and more. Like, you don't have to know how the whole thing plays out. Give it a chance. Don't sell yourself short. And whenever I'm put under pressure, then I'm a lot more likely to do those things. And it's like, as soon as, because I was under pressure and I was like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. As soon as the pressure lightens up, I'm back to watching anime and playing video games all day. I'm back to like not even doing anything. And it's like, I need to not be like that. And I know that I need to have more agency. My friend, she's an Aries, and she's like, the universe like rewards action. I'm like, okay, well, you're an Aries, right? So like, you act, I dream. I'm a Pisces. It's my dream. It's my duty to just like sit back and dream it. And it's like, well, eventually, you're gonna have to do something to make that dream a reality. Like, that, right, Pisces? You know that, right, Patrick? Eventually, like, for that dream to become real, something has to be done. And I'm like, just dreaming about it. And yeah, so I'm working through my stuff too. Is basically what all of this is about. And I think, again, at least for myself personally, it's been some interesting things that I've noticed along my journey that sometimes, again, I'll just reiterate, I'll be in a space to challenge or question my decision, ultimately to end up making the same choice or decision sometimes, but it's what's illuminated or the motivation behind it that I need to be more aware of, or it's just for me to like double down on what I want and to not be so wishy-washy, to be fixed and cardinal in the spaces where it serves me, and to be mutable and fluid in the spaces where it serves me, not to be like mutable and fluid to the point where it's like I'm not really doing anything, and then I get fixed in that space of not really doing anything. So, hey, Ariel, welcome. I was just about to shut it down, but howdy, howdy. How you doing tonight? Today, tonight? You're in Hawaii, right? I think so. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's just like what? Well, it's almost midnight. So it technically is late, but it's not too late. Oh, my brother just woke up. It's 7 there. Oh, snap. What? That's so crazy to me. Well, I guess it's not too crazy because I guess it would be 10 on the West Coast. I get confused between East and West sometimes, but Eastern time is the East Coast, Pacific time is the West Coast. Um, wow. I'm just like, because I think, like, because of Hawaii is part of America, so I just assumed it's like it's late all over. Yeah. Oh yeah, because that was about what? Because Rob and Lauren went live at like 12 Central, which would have been 8 your time. Oh snap! So Washington is actually one of the areas that I'm looking at. And because I'm looking at Washington, I'm looking at Merck. Because Merck is in Washington. I looked at 8 or 7. Woo! So yeah, when you were talking about getting them ready for camp, it's because it was like early in the morning there. Oh my gosh! Wait, you're in Washington too, Sheila? Woo! You lived in Seattle, so like it was a few years ago. I don't know where it came from. I was just randomly one day. I was like, I want to live in Seattle. Like I want to live in Seattle, Washington. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it dropped in me. And then like last year, so my brother was in Washington, and then one of my sisters had just moved to Washington, and I want to move to Washington. So I'm like, I don't know what it is with Washington and my father's kids, but we're all filling the pool, I guess. So it's dense there. Oh wow. I also looked up one day because I was just curious, like the ley lines in Seattle, and apparently, like, there's a whole thing. Because I was like, I don't know what would be attracting me to Seattle, so like, maybe there's some kind of ley line there or something. Um, Oof. Well, maybe I shouldn't go to Seattle. Well, Sheila said it's like nice, so. Oh, and I know that a bunch crossed in Vancouver, Canada. Oh, I didn't know that. Who's in Vancouver? Well, my seventh house is in Scorpio, so I can get down with Scorpionic energy. And one of my friends, he had an internship there. It might have been in like Bellevue, maybe. It was either Seattle or Bellevue, like in that area. And he was like, it's pretty like liberal or progressive or whatever. He was like, you would like it. I was like, oh snap, okay. But another one of my friends, I know that Seattle is expanding right now, so the cost of living is going up. And he is in urban planning. And he's like, as the cost of living goes up, then the need for affordable housing is also going up. And so there's also like a need growing for what he's very passionate about, um, besides your energetic issue. Okay. Outside the cities are much cheaper. All right. Well, maybe I'll look at Washington then. Come through, Team Washington. Yeah. Maybe that's where I find myself. Who knew? How are you doing, Ariel? I don't think I asked. So right now, I am in cornfield soybeans, Illinois, aka not Chicago, Illinois, in the Midwest, just here. Outside the city is getting expensive too. Oh my gosh. Well, it don't gotta be Seattle. So you're in an intense upgrade right now. I know that earlier when I was like towards the end of the Rob and Lauren's life, like I was getting like a headache and nauseous and stuff, so I had to take a nap. Jacksonville, Illinois? Or like I know there's a Jacksonville, Mississippi. Somebody like showed I think my sister, she was like the weather is so nice in the Pacific Northwest right now. And I was like, oh, it is a city in Illinois. What? Let's see how far this is from me. Oh, that's like two. Oh, that's past Springfield. Okay. Yeah, I'm like on the Illinois Indiana border. So I'm like 10 minutes from Indiana. So that's way like, yeah, it is. I found it. I was like, whoo. And she was like, it's so good, except for when it rains. But like, personally, I love the rain. You feel great, extremely hyper. Oh, wow. Hyper. Well, I guess you got a few hours. You have the 5-month old, right? So you can get all the energy out before bedtime and not be up all night. But I guess if you have a 5-month-old, then you'll probably still be up all night. So lost in a land, we're just pushing you off a ledge and you cannot see where you're going and it's freaking you out. Don't tell people what. Oh, about the weather? Yeah, because then even more people will go in there. 5 years, 3.5. 5, 3.5, and 5 months. Oof. But at least it's like I've always like wondered like how I would want to have kids. So my cousins, they have like a 16, 17 year old and a 4 or 5 year old. And like when the 16, 17 year old was younger, I was like, are y'all gonna have another kid? Are y'all gonna have another kid? Like when are y'all gonna have another kid? And now that their oldest is about to graduate, or yeah, now that their oldest is about to graduate high school, they're like, oof, like maybe we should have had them closer together because we're kind of done. We're kind of done raising kids right now. I was like, yeah, well, you got 13 more years until she's 18. So, yeah, like, so there's 2 years between me and the middle, and then 5 years between me and the youngest. So, yeah, it's about the same as what you got, I think. 5, 3.5, and 5 months. Yeah, that's about the same that my mom had. So, oh, it's tough with multiple. I guess that makes sense. I didn't think about that. When they're all like kind of sort of more demanding and like the time and energy that they need to have multiple that young could be oof. So it seems like there's pros and cons however you do it. Oh yeah, no. I'd be like um, I might adopt and I'm like, they gotta be at least like 10. Cause like terrible twos, like the why? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm like, let's get you an encyclopedia. I could teach them to read mostly cons each way. I guess the pros come much later in life. Um, yours are 27 months apart. Oh, that's not bad. But it's so worth it. Yeah. I like, yeah, I'm like, but it's also a part of the experience. So, you know, I'm not too averse to it. I used to not want kids until one day I saw a grown man on a bicycle riding down the street next to a Starbucks. And I looked at him and I said, I think I want children. It was so weird. Yeah. It's like especially with like how quick they pick up on like technology and stuff like that and just like how quick they also sort of like it almost seems like they develop like linguistically at the same time. I'm like, what? Because my cousin was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I saw you posted the Starseed Children reading. I hadn't watched it yet, but I might watch them all now so that I'm prepared for the future. They're really tuned in. Yeah, and that's one thing that I think would be like really cool about having kids now. But I think it would probably also maybe be not exhausting, but like being that close to like people who are like tuned in to something like beyond sort of like where we are. It's just like a space of like constantly being challenged, probably. And not in a bad way of being challenged, but just like, whew, like I gotta unlearn stuff. Like I've been down here for a while, so I gotta unlearn some stuff before I have any room for this new stuff. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Woo! Yeah. But I think I would also be like excited about that. Maybe I can get like one kid though, maybe two. I'm not gonna limit. And you're holding all their energy as they upgrade. That's interesting. So I saw the Hanged Man and the another card. I think it was the Eight of Wands. Let me see if I can find the picture really quick. Oops. I got these cards that came out together a while ago, and it reminded me of this energy. Like in the show that I saw, there was a girl, a lady, a woman who was pregnant. And while she was pregnant with the baby, it's like she had her baby's powers. And it almost carried that energy of like something in the child is working through in the mother. It was these two, if you can see it. There you go. See how like the hangman is in her womb? And so it was almost like she was tapping into the more like developed or realized potential of her child while it was like inside of her or something like that. And I was like, what? Yeah. So Ariel, you probably came into my life at a good time. So I have plenty of time to prepare. It is? Okay. Because at first I was like, I don't know. Like, that's what it's coming through as, but I don't know. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's intense. Well, I'm not going to have any babies inside my body. So, oh wow. But that doesn't mean I can't be energetically connected to them. Just not in that physical way like that. So, I don't know why I'm getting like more excited than anything. I'm like, oh, like let me get my life together. I feel my throat starting to get a little raspy. But yeah, I'm gonna have to check those out. Okay. I think I don't know if like either of you have seen it, but so I did have a dream about like meeting my daughter. And I talked to Bohemian Stars and Ocean Heart Readings about it. I was like, I had this dream, and she was like, well, sometimes she was like, love. Yeah, she is on YouTube. She just started her channel. I'll let her answer. I mean, I'll let her answer the question. Um, but I was like, oh, I'm so proud of you. I saw that video up. I was like, oh snap, she released it. Um, but she was like, sometimes when we're connected to someone, like love has the power to transcend time and space. And she was like, that could very well be your daughter, like reaching out to you. And I was in a super dark place. Let me see if I can find it for you real quick. And I'll link it right here. I was in a super dark place when I had that dream. And that dream, because in the dream, it was a little girl, and she was like, I would use all of my birthday wishes to make you my father. And so I was like, oh, well, there's a little girl out there somewhere in the ethers that I got to live for now. And for me, for a while, that was enough to keep me going. Um, and I had another friend who was like, is that really enough? Like, I was like, yeah, it is. So, oops, here we go. That should link you to her channel. Oops. Yep, there you go. I know that like when I'm on the, I have to like search or filter out by channels. Both of your kids were talking to you before they were conceived. What? What? Now I'm like, I gotta be somebody. I'm I'm like, ooh, your daddy is still trying to learn to take care of himself right now. He's going through his ascension journey. Okay. But yeah, so I'm gonna definitely check those out. Um, and then I think I had or that was a different dream. You have three girls and they're strong. Excuse me. I think there was a generation in my family where it was like everybody had boys. But my cousin come to Seattle and work for a CBD company. So speaking of convenience, I would have never thought of working for like a CBD company. But like 2 years ago, I think it was summer 2019, I went to one of my friend's retirement parties, my friend's mom's retirement parties. And when we were there, her aunt was working with a company and they were looking for like chemists or botanists or something like that. And before that, I had never really given any thought to like that because I was always like pharmaceuticals. And she was like, "Oh, like send in your," she was like, "Send your application in, or like wait for the information." And then I got a phone call from a dude at the top of the year. And he was like, "I'm just curious, like, would you ever work with like marijuana or like cannabinoids or anything like that?" And I was like, "Well, I actually sort of got extended an opportunity like before. So now, like, yeah, I would do it." So, grow warehouses. It's legal in Illinois now, too. So, grow houses and stores everywhere. You used to do their accounting. What? Hold up. And mental breakdown in the middle of having your kids. You're still getting your lives together. You are never ready. Oh, it's not. That's interesting. I feel like um I feel like it should be for some reason. Just because I feel like Hawaii is so like natural or whatever. But maybe not. Who knows? I mean, apparently not, because you said it's not legal. I think what January 2020 it might have been legalized in Illinois. And so some people come over from oh, okay. I think I might have heard of another place that's like that. Where it's like, people grow it and they partake in it. And it's not really like enforced. It's just like not legal yet. Gotcha, gotcha. You think high would be at the front? Alaska has it? Well, Alaska, like they're all in the cold, right? I actually would maybe I should look at Alaska. I don't like heat. Only enforced for vacationers. Well, that makes sense. It reminds me of like, was it last year when people were like going to Miami or going to Florida or something and just like tearing it up? And then like one of the mayors was like, if you're from outside of the area, like we don't want you here because you're coming here and you're tearing everything up. But it's changed over the last 10 years. Okay, it is pretty close to like Canada. Yeah, I mean Hawaii. I guess Hawaii is like Hawaii, so I can see people going there and just like living it up, living it up. Oh yeah. Excuse me. What? 101? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. I don't want that. That's disgusting. You're totally off grid up in the hills. Is it warm there, Ariel? I feel like it would be like super hot. Oh, mm-mm. Yeah, she just said she was like, "Oh, it's gorgeous in the PNW." I'm like, "Oh, well, 101 degrees." It's 70 to 80 year round. Are you serious? I can do 70 to 80. I thought it would be like 90s, 100s. I guess it's not in the middle of a desert. And they're like islands. So I guess all of the water would like stabilize the temperature. Oh, wow. Okay. I feel like 101 day is enough, Sheila. I'm like, because if it's 101 one day, it could be 103 the next. It's different on each island, on each side. Oh. Are there mountains there? Because I guess, because I know it's like, if there's like a mountain and then the air comes in, it's like it does that thing where it circulates off of the mountain or something like that because it can't blow through the mountain. Also up at about 1,000 feet. Okay. Oh, you get a lot of wind off the ocean. That feels like that would be lovely. Do you get seagulls? Are there seagulls there? Are there seagulls where you are, Sheila? Lots of mount. Oh yeah, volcanoes. That makes sense. That was an interesting question. I knew that. I knew the whole like ring of fire. That just string of volcanoes. I need to be where the seagulls are. Ooh, you've never seen a seagull there? That's interesting. Well, I mean, maybe it isn't. I guess it's in the ocean, and not the sea. You toss fries at them on the waterfront. I didn't know that seagulls just like chill in the water until I went up to Lake Michigan. They were just like in the water. I was like, what? Pele. Somebody said, did you say Pele earlier? I was like, somebody said Pele earlier. I'm like, what's Pele? And not the Brazilian soccer player? Or maybe it is a Brazilian soccer player? Oh, wait, wait, wait. What was that? What was that? Deity. Yeah, and Hawaiian religion. Goddess of volcanoes and fire and the creator of the Hawaiian Islands. Okay. Volcano goddess. She's fire. Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was like, I know somebody said Pele. I just Googled it and it's like it popped up. Oh, oof. When Pele called you out to Hawaii and you got a house full of little star seeds, everybody waking up. Oh my gosh. That's some like raw energy. That's some pretty intense. And like three girls. Woo! Woo! I love it. The seagulls are so nice. They were cute. Ooh, excuse me. I'm gonna have to get to bed here pretty soon. Pele and Kali are there right now. Oh. See, I like Kali. Kali, I resonate with. I have a huge appreciation and respect for Kali. So, like, while I feel like sometimes she speaks to me, I don't know if I would never necessarily like try to like reach out to her. But every now and then, Kali comes through. I'm like, oh, thank you. She set me straight a few months ago because I was a little irritated, a little frustrated. You have a vacation cabin. Ooh. Hilo. Excuse me. Excuse me. I knew someone. She was from Hawaii actually. Her name was Shelby. I don't remember. I think she ended up going on like a Peace Corps thing or something, but she like won't leave. She's like, it's important for me to be here right now. Come through, guys. All right, well, I'm gonna have to get to bed. This was lovely. Thank you so much for being here, Ariel and Sheila. It was so fun. And also Zelda, thank you for stopping through. Um, you have, and you can't escape it. Your little star seeds are going to make sure that you are perfectly positioned. It's like they triangulate you, so wherever you go, they'll be able to find your energy with those three lights. Like, oh, there she is. We can see her from light years away. Same. Excuse me. All right. Well, I hope you have a lovely evening, morning, night, whatever, whenever you see this. And I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. Emphasis on acting and alignment. I need to remember that. I say emphasis on acting a lot, but I don't necessarily act too much myself. So I'm taking a page out of my own book tonight. I'll see y'all later. Have a good one.